everybody, David Ellefson here, and you are listening to the Brutally Delicious podcast. Keep it brutal.
Welcome back to the Mental Madness!
A brutally delicious podcast.
This is 70,000 Tons of Metal, the original but world's biggest heavy metal cruise. 60 bands, 4 days, 1 cruise ship, only 3,000 tickets. It's like having an all-access backstage pass. January 29th to February 2nd, 2026. From Miami, Florida to Nassau, the Bahamas, and back. 70,000 tons of metal. What are you doing next winter?
Awesome,
How are you, my
guys?
friend?
How are you? Great.
Hey, how are you?
What are you guys doing?
Nothing, preparing for this, I guess, listening to the record.
Yeah, thank you.
Where are you at? Where are you at these days? You
I'm
back
in
Arizona
Arizona
overseas?
right now.
Oh, okay.
Yep.
I didn't know if you had moved over to the. You do a lot of stuff over in England and Europe.
Yeah, look, a lot of my life is over there. A lot of demand for what I do is there. So I'm back and forth. And, I've tried to set up my life up so that I can just be full-time, play music and do that and go wherever the phone calls and bring a bass as well,
Excellent. So that's going to bring me to the first thing we were just talking about before you got on is how in the world do you keep up with so many projects? You're like the guy that's everywhere, involved in everything.
I was told years ago by my friend Al Petrelli in 2002, say yes to everything. Now, that can be a bit daunting. But, as he said, he goes, you're going to get overbooked, but better to be overbooked than underbooked, And I learned quickly because I said no to a couple things that year. Boy, the phone stops ringing quickly,
Really?
And I think as in anything in life, it's about momentum, And I think as long as you're always in the room and you say yes and you be agreeable and try not to make it about the money, try not to make it about all those things. And again, we're deserving to get compensated for what we do. But,
Sure.
For me, the goal was always just to play music. That was always the thing. And, so I think that's sort of the motto. That's the mission statement for me, and, look, I spent many years in one group. When that fractured apart in 2002, I was in a new phase of my life to go, well, let me go see what else is out there, and then of course in more recent years, the same thing.
Right.
And I think the training I got in 2002 to 2010, those years sort of trained me how to do this, because I was never like a gun for hire session guy. I was always about form a band, be in a band. We're here to take over the world, and that's what we do.
Right.
So I've gotten to do both, which is really, I think, super liberating.
When you're writing, do you have trouble like compartmentalizing who you're writing for, or how does that?
No,
that was probably an
good,
issue too, right?
well, good question. So back here's a little arsenal of weapons. Guitars, some basses, fretless,
Right.
all kinds of different stuff. So when I'm in the mood to write, I'll compose some ideas. I just always put them on my iPhone. I just capture them real quick because that way I can always send them to somebody and say, "Hey, I got an idea." And usually it's pretty obvious. It's like, "Hey, this is something I should send to Guilherme from Dieth. Hey, this is something I should send over to Andy Martin-Jelly. Maybe a future thing for us, Ellfeson, Soto, or otherwise." If I'm sitting at the piano in the other room, I've written a couple of things that I was collaborating with a guy in France on, and, maybe there'll be something about that one day. I wrote one really cool piano tune that I really like a lot. So, there's a whole other world of stuff, that at some points, I'll probably get into detailing that. But, I think when you're writing, for me, it's just writing. Right. And it's just kind of, where I store it, what bucket I put it in to sort of house it until I need it. Right. That's after the fact. Now, with that said, Ellfeson Soto, for instance, when we're deep in it writing, and usually, me and Andy get together in London, we write, we track everything, we put it down, at least the ideas. And then once we get Jeff in the mix, which is always some later time, that's when we deep dive and get really serious about, what we're writing, detail the stories, detail the lyrics, the melodies, and that's when it really becomes a record project, because recording is a project, right? There's a goal, there's a time frame, there's usually a budget. So it's like building a house, right? Time, labor, materials. You know what I mean? So,
Right.
The making a record is no different. It's the same thing. So, I think for us, there's a real serious focus. And then look, same with when we work on Dive, same with when I'm working with Kings of Thrash. Hang on.
You're good.
Sorry about that. When I'm working in, I'm trying to make a call go later. My apologies. There you go. The world's calling as we're talking about one thing. The world's calling for something else.
Right.
Interview's over. There you go. There it is. We tried to do an interview with David, but his phone kept ringing for people calling him wanting to do stuff, so we had to go. There it is.
Yeah.
All right.
We
So
were
one
joking.
more. I'm going to let Dark jump in. Sorry, Dark.
Sure.
What a great band. I mean, fan of Jeff Scott Soto since, I don't know, Ingve. I saw him on like the first tour at Lemoore when they played. Unbelievable talent. But Andy, where did Andy come from? What a complete great tone and unbelievable player.
Isn't he? I mean, really, it should say Ellefson, Soto, Martin, Jelly. Me and Jeff even talk about that. And our drummer Paulo, man. I mean, again, another powerhouse. I always say a band is only as good as its drummer, and sometimes the best drummers are so good that they just hold it down in a certain way that doesn't have to be flashy. But Paulo to me is a modern day Clive Burr, and that's what I love about him. And I'll stand by that. He's just phenomenal. So Andy, I think I had seen maybe some stuff online with him. This was let's say 2016 Dystopia tour, and we were just pulling into Bologna, Italy, and remember the band Cobra and the Lotus? So Cobra's mother managed her, and she messaged me and said, "Hey, we're looking for a guitar player. Do you have any ideas?" And I was sitting next to Kiko on the bus. I said, "Hey, my friend Cobra needs a guitar player." And right away he goes, "Andy Martin Jelly. You want me to message him? He'll come to the show tonight." I'm like, whoa, hell yeah. So, because I try to connect dots for people. That's what our business is, right? This is a business about being connected to people, right? So Andy comes down to the show. He's full of energy. He looks great. He shows up ready to do business, and I was like, that's great. So I introduced him to Susan, to Cobra's mom manager, and that worked. And so Andy played with Cobra for a couple of years. I think they did a bunch of touring. And so fast forward, me and Frank Bello put out Altitudes and Attitude. And I need a band for Europe because I asked Slash if we could jump on some shows with him, and he kindly did. He kindly put us on a handful of dates with him, and they were big shows, So I hit Andy. I go, "Dude, can you jump in on this?" And so he did. And so we had a drummer, Joe Babiak from Chicago, who I had played with, who had just moved to I believe the Netherlands. So it all kind of worked out. We put a band together, right? So we get on stage doing the big shows with Slash, with Altitudes and Attitude. And again, Andy just proved one more time he's the guy, right? He knows what he's doing. He's got the whole package. Looks great, plays great. He's got his social media together, just everything you need, right? For a guy these days. And then I did a bass story tour, and I hit Andy. I said, "Hey, we're coming through Milan, I think." And that's when he brought in Paulo, the drummer. And I said, "Andy, I need a band because I was using pickup bands. Every city I went to, I used a different band. And which I tell you, talk about growing musically. Whew, that's the way not only grow musically, but grow as a band leader, grow as a boss, grow as, the guy, in charge. I took that whole thing around the world like that and used a band almost every day. But so I hit Andy. I said, I need a band. He goes, I got it. So he brings in Paulo, brings in another guitar player. And again, three checks for Andy. I was like, man, every time I call this guy, he just levels up big time, And to me, that's as much a part of it. I don't just need a guy who can sit at home in his bedroom and impress people on YouTube. I need a guy who knows how to get on stage, make it rock, make it work. You can hang out with a guy. You get along, it's got to be the whole package, and Andy's that guy, man. So he's just, I love the guy. He's just got the whole thing, So, as he and I were composing, we worked a lot through COVID. We did the Ellfeson No Cover record. We did that Post Malone cover of the song Over Now. We worked on, I think he participated a bit on the Sleeping Giants album. And that was when I started to step out and start doing records under the Ellfeson name, and, so, fast forward to Ellfeson Soto in 2021, the Vacation in the Underworld album. That was me, Andy, and Jeff putting that together. Now the new record, Unbreakable, we just lather, rinse, repeat, and we just, keep it going. I mean, if it ain't broke, keep doing it, So that's how we landed here.
What a player, though. Holy cow.
Isn't he great? He's really, he's feisty. Look, he boxes. He loves to eat food. He loves coffee. I mean, he's a brother from another mother, man. So he's and his playing is great. As you hear on the song Ghosts, he brought that piece in, and I thought, man, on the last record we had a track that featured, it was kind of more bass centric because I brought it in, and on this one, I thought, let's let you have the feature. Let's make it a guitar featured instrumental. And I'll just sort of play bass to your part. So, there's a lot of those nice things that work like that.
Nice. Dark?
Okay, yeah. Before I ask questions about the album, you just dropped an incredible amount of names. The whole idea of 6 degrees of Kevin Bacon? Is that you for metal? Are you
totally.
The Witchman?
100%. I mean, look, it's probably my Minnesota nature, I guess, to be like that. But, the truth is, it's just, that's intuitively how I'm wired, I mean, even in Megadeth, Dave always used to call me the diplomat and the ambassador and the keeper of the facts. And, I was just that guy, man. And it's just, it's my passion, and I just, working together is what makes the world go around. That's why I hate when things fragment or you get disagreements with people and things are not copacetic. You know what I mean? Because I always feel like they don't have to be. And I can honestly say I really do my best to do my part. To if I break something, I fix it. You know what I mean? And I try to deal with it and get ahead of it and fix my shit, if you will, I can say I've honestly done that throughout my lifetime. So, because look, we're human, it is what it is. Right. And being in bands, that's a very intimate relationship that you have because you're sharing very personal stuff with each other, to may not seem like it, but, to just sit in a room with a stranger and throw a riff out. What if they reject it? What if they say, oh, I don't like that, or that's not what I do, so it's like going on a date, you know what I mean? It's like, do you like ice cream? Do you like pizza? What movie do you like? You know what I mean? It's all the same stuff, right? So it being in musical harmony with other people is the same thing. And, to just kind of, and you kind of know, it's interesting how you sort of gravitate toward the people and the situations that you should be part of. And the ones that you kind of go, that's maybe not my tribe over there. You kind of deflect away from that as well.
Wow. I don't even know how to follow that. So amazing. But yeah, about this album and your, you sort of touched on it already, the songwriting style. I think most people generally associate you with a very what's a good word for it? I mean, thrashy, but stuff where it's the guitar's the focus and, you don't really have a lot of chord progressions going on. You got Jeff Scott Soto now, who is simultaneously one of the greatest metal vocalists ever and somehow underappreciated. Usually those two don't go together, but they do with him. Was it like a conscious, like, okay, let's listen to more Kiss to pull this off, or, you know, less whatever your previous influences were?
I would agree with what you say on all of it. You know, and just because my past was one thing doesn't mean that now everything has to just be Rust in Peace Part 10. You know, I think if anything, I've proven that I'm willing to spread my wings, fly, go to kind of where, you know, where the wind takes me, you know, and be okay with the journey, you know, because it isn't just the destination. It really is in the process. That's where the joy comes from with the records, you know, because once you finish it, then you turn it into the label and you put it out. There's all the marketing and all everything else that goes with it, which I enjoy all that as well. But while you're creating the music and putting that together, I had a song from Vacation in the Underworld called Writing on the Wall. And it was a tune that I'd had for a few years. I wrote the whole thing and I kept needing this voice on it. And so finally Andy, he goes, call Jeff. He's your friend. You love his voice. We should have Jeff sing on our album anyway. Call him, you know. So I did it. I called him. He sang on it. He sent it back to me within like an hour. It was amazing. And I was just like, yeah, this is just so obvious. And that began our partnership. You know, again, you kind of, you know, you go out for a, you know, the first dance, if you will. You know what I mean? And you see if there's any love there. You know, and that just started the whole process. And you know, when we work with Jeff, we all make suggestions. We all work with each other, but I just try to let him be who he is and do what he does. Because, like you said, he's one of the greatest rock metal singers out there. He's been doing it a long time, and I agree, maybe a bit not underappreciated because everybody appreciates him. But you know, the marketing and everything else that goes with it, there's a lot, you know. And Jeff's involved in a lot of things, you know, and. So I'm glad that he's got a bright spotlight here with us. You know, his voice is heard both literally and figuratively, you know, that his name is on the door. He's as much at the spotlight as I am and all the rest of it. And you can really hear the creative power that flows between us.
Yes, absolutely. And he's another one of those guys, I think, kind of like you, right, that's involved in so many different things. He's done so much over the years. Lots of different bands and acts and projects and stuff.
I mean, look, you know, if you get one group that you either form and drive the bus on, or you can be a part of, which I kind of got to do, you know, a little bit of both with Megadeth, you know. I mean, Dave determined himself the leader right up front. So I acquiesced to that. I said, all right, I'll be the number 2 to his number 1, you know, because it takes both of us, you know, to make it happen. And so we established that right up front. You know, I talked to Mike Portnoy about that with Dream Theater. A lot of my friends, you know, we get in these bands and look, they're just a project too. You start them. Next thing you know, a record company signs you. Next thing you know, you're selling some records. You're getting on bigger tours, and it's, you know, you never know if any of these things are going to hit. You know, so you just go do it. And Jeff's had some big gigs. I mean, he sang Journey and Yngwie, and you know, he's had his big days as well. But I just as much admire a guy or a person who stays in it, because you know, success. Sometimes we don't really have much to do with it. As long as we show up ready to play ball, you know, we're prepared to be in the game and we bring our best. That's all we can do. You know, whatever the final outcome of box office, you know, and record sales and all that stuff, there's a lot that goes into that. And sometimes, as best as you can control that, sometimes there's outside forces working against it. You know, a new genre shows up. You put a show on sale, and next thing you know, some other big act puts a tour on sale the same day. You know, I mean, you know, it just a lot of it's beyond your control. You know, so you just do the best you can, and those are the people I like to work with. You know, the people who not only make the right moves, but they they bring their A game at all times. You know, whether you're playing the big room or you're in the small room, you're always bringing your A game, and you're always in it. I hate to use a cliche, in it to win it, but you're always in it to just because it's what you like to do, and it's who you are. You know, that to me is that's the crown jewel right there for me.
Fair enough. Dark, you got it?
Yeah. So I guess I think you've said or were quoted on Blabbermouth recently that like you never have to work another day again in your life. So are you still in it to win it, or do you just do it because you love it at this point?
I do it because I love it. You know, part of that comment was I never have to work because I don't go to work. I play. You know what I mean? I don't work music. I play music, right? So it's kind of a double entendre. I didn't say that to go like I'm bloody rich and fuck, I never have to work. That was not the point of that. And you know my style. It's not my nature to say that. You know, but I don't do these projects to go make money. You know, that's that because look, in fact, if anything, I end up investing in them. I'm always putting my own money into these things. And it's kind of like when you buy a car. As soon as you buy it and you drive it off the lot, you're already upside down, right? You already owe more than it's worth, right? And that's how bands are, man. Until they start to have some financial value at the box office and with record sales and merchandising, you're probably upside down. I mean, even in Megadeth, we were upside down up until about Countdown to Extinction, you know, 5 albums into our career, you know, because we take everything, we invest it. You know, I see my friends on big tours and I can pretty much count how many trucks and buses and how many people I get. And then I can count and go, how many people are in the building and go, yeah, they're either making money or they're not making money, or some nights they're breaking even. And, you know, it's, you know, and that's just how it is, man. It's like, you know, moving rock bands around the world costs a lot of money. You know, it's not cheap, and everybody thinks that there's all this money, and then like hopefully we end up a little further ahead at the end of it than we did when we started. And I did. I'm lucky with that. Not everybody does, man. And you know, like I said, Kings of Thrash, Dieth, these new bands that I start, they're totally for the love of doing it, you know. And look, they're profitable enough that we can keep it going. Otherwise, at some point, you just, you know, who can afford to just keep throwing, you know, money at something if it's just not working. But to me, as long as they're sustainable, I'm good. Let's go. Let's book another show. Let's book another flight. I got a bass sitting right here. Let's rock, man. You know, so, you know, to me, songs are fun. People are fun. There's enough loot to pay the bills, so everybody feels like they, you know, got a little something out of it. What more could you want, man? I mean, to me, that's like the perfect life.
I agree. And we're running up against time, but I got to ask you one quick question, kind of shift gears for a second. What was it like playing back to the beginning?
It was incredible. It was exactly as you saw online, as you saw if you watched the live stream. I tell people it's like you were there with us if you were at home watching it on the live stream. I mean, it was exactly as you saw it. It was just such a beautiful, harmonious, heartfelt event by everybody. No one in that room was bigger than anybody else. Ozzy and Black Sabbath were clearly they were the guys. They were the ones we came to honor, but even they were so cool. And just everyone was so chill. You know, the fact that we got to say goodbye to them and they got to say goodbye to us. I mean, what a cool thing to do, you know, because usually it's not like that. Usually someone fades away or passes away, and then one day you read it in the obituary in the news. It's like, oh, whatever happened to that guy? Oh my God, he passed away last year, you know, and you forget, you know, and the way that they just kept it in our in our mind, they kept it in the forefront for us. We were all looking forward to going into it, and then once we came out of it, was like, I feel like we're the ones who got the gift out of that, you know what I mean? And, you know, Ozzy, you could tell, was just so thrilled. He was just tickled that he got to do it again. You know, it's the after show glow, you know, after you play a gig. And the gig could be for 20 people or 20,000, don't matter. You get the after show glow. You know what I mean? It's like, so it's, you know, that's about all I have to say about it. I mean, it was absolutely phenomenal, and I'm just beyond thrilled and honored that I was even asked to be there.
Fair enough. And then lastly, I have one more before maybe Dark does. Are you planning on taking this out on the road? Is this going to be a live thing?
With Ellfeson Soto, we have, because of schedules, this one's a little more tricky than some of the other ones. Plus, me and Jeff live in America. The Italians are on that side of the world. You know what I mean? But I tell you what, everybody's got a great attitude about, opportunities. So we are going to do the Monsters of Rock cruise in April. And so I think it's going to be kind of more of that kind of stuff, things that give the sort of support to it, that allow it to happen rather than, we all jump in a van and grind our way around the world, playing every freaking gas station that has an outlet. That we're not doing that. That's for sure. So I think it's just more important for us that it's enjoyable, it's sustainable. And the pressures of being on the road, can change things as well. And right now it's just such an enjoyable process. We want to make sure that it always stays like that.
Okay. Dark.
That was basically, it was like, when do we get to see you live again? Because the last Kings of Thrash tour in the US was 2 years ago.
Yeah, no. Look, Kings of Thrash, we're going to be out. We'll be out, in fact, actually first week of September. We've got some shows in Southern Cal and Arizona. We've got, in October, we've got 3 dates across Florida. And then right after that, we've got an East Coast, Midwest. I kind of call it the iron ore range, or the steel belt, the rust belt of Ohio, Michigan, upstate New York, Ohio, in Kentucky, and that kind of stuff. So we've got that whole run of dates there. And then there's a bunch of other stuff too. There's a lot of the Kings of Thrash calendars actually filling up pretty nice. So we keep all that stuff on our socials and online as well.
Thank you so much, my friend. Always good to see you.
All right, guys, rock on.
Hey,
see you guys.
Good luck. We'll see